Ever feel like someone needs to step up and do something about, all the climate stuff?
Definitely, that feeling is real.
Well, today's deep dive is all about those someones. We're talking young women facing down the climate crisis head on.
And it's not just about, like, symbolic actions. Climate sisters. Resisting ecocide goes deep. It gets into the human cost of climate change and how incredibly resilient these activists are.
It's a whole generation dealing with a planet that's already feeling the heat. Like literally, not just an expression.
Yeah, for real.
2023 shattered global temperature records, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Plus 1.3 degrees Celsius,
That is huge.
that's gotta be huge.
Huge. And it's not just, like you said, a hotter summer. It's melting glaciers, it's deforestation, it's floods. The book really brings those statistics to life.
Okay, so less numbers, more people. Let's meet one of these climate sisters. Nina Brozovich from Bolivia. She was only 20 years old when she founded Fridays for Future Bolivia.
Wow.
Imagine being so young and thinking, the only way to save my country is if I build this movement myself.
It's really incredible when you think about it. You don't need millions of dollars or some fancy title to make a difference. Nina's story proves that. I mean, she just started small, fueled by her love for her country and the natural world. And now, Fridays for Future Bolivia. They're mobilizing over 600 people pushing for change at the local level.
That's amazing.
Grassroots action at its finest.
So she saw a problem and just took charge. It's not always that simple, though, is it?
It's not.
I mean, fighting for the environment can get dangerous, right? Especially when, there are these powerful interests who want to keep things just the way they are.
Yeah, and that's where our next climate sister story begins. Bertha Zúñiga Cáceres, an indigenous activist from Honduras. She understands those dangers all too well. Because tragically, her mother, who was also a well-known environmental activist, was assassinated for her work, just for defending their land.
Wow. To continue that fight after a loss like that, I mean, that's unbelievably brave. It's also a really stark reminder that for some people, this isn't just about saving the planet in some abstract way. It's about protecting their homes, their livelihoods, for the very lives, really.
It is. And Bertha leads the Civic Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations of Honduras now, the same organization that her mother co-founded. So it shows that for her, environmentalism isn't just about, planting trees, It's about social justice, it's about indigenous rights, and it's about challenging corruption. It's all interconnected.
Okay, so we've got someone building a movement from scratch, someone carrying a torch passed down under just horrific circumstances. What else are these climate sisters doing to create change?
Well, they're tapping into technology. Adriana Hernandéz from Mexico. She saw firsthand the effects of climate change when her own community in Morelos got hit by, really intense flooding.
That's got to be a wake-up call. We see those images on the news, but actually experiencing it, that's different.
Totally different. And for Adriana, it really ignited a passion in her for digital activism. She works with Fridays for Future Mexico, but she also uses online platforms and different campaigns to get her message out there and mobilize people.
It's like activism for the 21st century. You don't need permission to stand up for what you believe in. Be the change.
Exactly. And she is not alone. This new generation, they're digitally savvy, they get how to use social media, and they're building these global networks and demanding action all online.
Yeah, it's really something to see how these young women are finding new ways to fight for their future. And their stories really show how global this whole thing is,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, climate change doesn't care about borders, right? Neither do these inspiring stories. So let's head over to Africa, where we can meet two more climate sisters. They're taking on this challenge in their own way.
Love it. First up, we're going to the beaches of Mozambique, which, you probably picture a beautiful paradise.
Totally.
But for Regina Charumar, growing up near Maputo's Costa do Sol beach, it was heartbreaking to see all the pollution there, just trashing this coastline.
It's so easy to feel overwhelmed by that, right? How can I, one person, deal with all this pollution? But her story is amazing. It reminds us that even small things can make a difference.
For sure. So instead of being well, what can I do? She just took charge.
Love that.
She started something called Operation Kako, got volunteers together, mostly young people, and they went to work on all that trash.
No way.
And get this, they actually turned one of the dirtiest beaches in Mozambique into one of the cleanest.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk about it, turning the tide, literally.
Right.
But she didn't stop there. She went on to found an organization. It's called Movimento Ambiental Geração Consciente. Their focus is really on educating the next generation about, taking care of the environment. It's like she said, we cleaned up this beach. Now let's make sure we never have to do it again.
That's the key, right? It's not just cleaning up the mess, but making sure that future generations don't have to deal with the same stuff.
100%. And so while Regina is focused on cleaning up the environment, our next climate sister in South Africa, she's tackling these social injustices that are made worse by climate change.
Which is huge because, I mean, we talk about climate change, like melting ice caps and stuff, but it's really about people's lives, how
Right.
they make a living. So tell me about Thandile Chinyavanhu. What's she doing?
Thandile's amazing. She's really bringing this powerful voice to the table and highlighting how climate change impacts women more than anyone else, especially in those rural communities.
Which is so true. We hear about climate change as this big global thing, but the reality is its effects are different for everybody.
Absolutely. And Thandile really emphasizes that in South Africa, a lot of women, they're the ones working in agriculture. So when you have these climate shocks, droughts or floods hit, it's those women who are most affected.
It's like climate change makes inequality even worse.
Exactly.
What's Thandile doing to, fight back?
Well, she's a big advocate for policies that actually support women in agriculture.
Lovely.
Giving them the power to be the ones who create change in their communities. She's also trying to raise awareness about how connected gender equality and climate justice really are.
It's all connected. And I love that she's not just pointing fingers, but actually finding solutions. It's about, making sure people have what they need to adapt and thrive, even with all these challenges. It's inspiring to hear about these climate sisters and everything they're doing. But I got to say, learning about all the stuff they're up against, like environmental destruction, social injustice, even putting their own lives at risk, it makes you realize something.
What's that?
How hopeful they are. It's really amazing, actually. They're facing all this, but they still believe they can make a difference.
It's not naive, though. You know what I mean? It's like their hope comes from this really deep belief in what we can do together. They get that this climate crisis, it's bigger than just one person.
It's way bigger.
It's bigger than one community, even one country.
Yeah.
It's everyone.
Right. It's global. And it needs a global solution. And that's what these climate sisters are doing. They're building these connections across the world. They're working with other activists, making sure their voices are heard.
It's a real call to action for all of us. And it's not about waiting for somebody else to fix it. It's about looking around and saying, okay, what can I do?
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing about Climate Sisters. It's more than just a book. It's like this big reminder that we all have a part to play in this whole climate thing. So as we wrap up our deep dive here, I'm curious, what will you take away from these stories? What really resonated with you?
I think for me, it's remembering that even when things seem impossible, there's always hope. And that hope, it comes from people like Nina, Bertha, Adriana, Regina, Thandile. They're so courageous and so determined to make things better for everybody.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Learning about them, understanding what they're up against, helping them get their message out there, that's huge. And who knows, maybe some of you listening will be inspired to become climate sisters, climate brothers, whatever you want to call it. This fight for climate justice is far from over. It's a fight we can't afford to lose. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.